We want to welcome everybody back to the podcast, and it's my great privilege to introduce everybody to Jonathan, one of our up-and-coming missionaries on the journey towards working in the Philippines. Jonathan, welcome to the show, brother.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Well, I'm glad you can make it. Off the podcast, we've had a little bit of a chat about your life, and I'm excited for our listening audience to be able to hear, because there just sounds like there's some exciting things that God's been doing in your life since your childhood up until this point of where you are today. So we like to go back to the childhood, the early years, talk about where you grew up, how God was working in your life, and then work our way through it. So, yeah, take us back to the early years.
Well, it starts here. I'm what you call a miracle child. I grew up and my mom told me that I was born almost dead, when I was a baby because I had the umbilical cord around my neck, right? And they gave her 3 days, either I live or be not okay on the head, right? Or somehow have some kind of brain injury. So she made a prayer and said, if you allow my son to live, I would dedicate him for the rest of his life to you. And God allowed me to live. Most of my child years or teen years, preteen years, I had a little bit of an identity crisis growing up, right? Doing that transition when I was born. It was difficult for me because I felt like people would reject me or people would see me as the weird kid. And I never understood why. I never understood why the rejection. But in the midst of that, God had a plan for my life. I didn't understand at that time. I just thought that I was just different or just didn't fit in. I did go through a lot of bullying in school and growing up.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up, like I said in the beginning, we were talking about before our recording. I was born in Mexico for the first 6, 7 years. Yeah. So when it was maybe in 1997, 1996, we came here to the US, and we also had a big transition coming here, different cultural shock.
Yeah.
So it was difficult for me as well in that area growing up. But somehow the Lord provided and opened doors. We were living in my grandma's house. We were living in different houses, renting, just very unstable childhood or life.
When you guys made it
And
to the States, where was that? Was that in Texas?
yes, Texas. We were living here is a town called Donna. We used to live in San Juan, which is maybe 16 minutes from here. And for a while, but we've been here for maybe 27 years now here in Donna.
Okay.
Something like that, if I'm not mistaken. So most of my life, yeah, I grew up here. The rest of my teen years and adulthood, I've been here.
Yeah. So, growing up originally, starting off in Mexico, coming into life barely, and your mom dedicating you to the Lord at that time, then growing up and having that transition where you guys end up in the States and adjusting to that, the cultural differences, the culture shock, and all those kinds of things into those teen years. You're saying there was a challenge there, there's a difficulty there. As you look back on that, you think about that, how could you see where God was working and moving within that, even in the times of, the bullying and all the other stuff that you're dealing with?
Yes, in my heart, I always had a sense of there's something greater. I don't know how to explain it, but even in my times of rebellion, because I was the nice kid for a long time, or at least I tried to stay that way. But I graduated from high school up to 24, I got myself into drugs and things like that I shouldn't have, right? But I was looking for a refuge and an escape from things or from reality. And this is because when I was 16, I had given my life to Christ in that way, right? But somehow along the line, I lost myself. I got disconnected from God and got myself into a lot of things I shouldn't have. And that brought a lot of shame, guilt into my life, obviously. And knowing that I was still attending to church, and it brought a lot of shame. So it brought my mentality was like, you know what? The Lord's never going to forgive me either way. I failed him so much. So why not just go full in,
Yeah.
full in into sin? I thought God didn't love me anymore. I thought God forgotten about me. But he didn't. He never did. He was still there.
Yeah.
And at times I could hear the subtle voice saying, "You don't belong here. Right? I have something bigger for you." But Lord, I would fight my way through. Lord, you can't forgive me. I failed you too much. And that's when I was around before starting seminary, maybe 2017, 2016. That's when things changed. The Lord really confronted me with his love, right? Not with his judging or none of that, but with his love, he confronted me.
What'd that look like? Walk us through that.
I remember I was out of my mind that day, but I saw my mom on her knees and praying for me. And she was listening to this song, this Spanish song. The lyrics says, at your feet, I found peace. At your feet, I find, forgiveness. And that really struck a chord deep into my soul, just seeing my mom there. And I remember going into my room and just falling my face during that time of, when I was in that situation of fighting for my identity. I remember at times I was, thoughts would cross my mind like, you should just get over it. You're a failure, things like that. But at that time, is that still voice, son, I love you. It wasn't like a audible voice, but it was like deep into my soul.
Yeah.
And just saying, I have you and I will use you in front of multitudes. And I still love you and I've never forgotten about you. And I remember just breaking down and just crying and crying and crying. And I opened the book of Jeremiah. I just opened the Bible and then opened into Jeremiah. Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 4 to 10, I believe. And just God speaking to Jeremiah and his calling. I chose you in your mother's womb, right? I consecrated you as a prophet to the nations. And those words just hit my face. Oh, wait, Lord, you still love me, right? You still have a purpose for me, even though I failed you. And that was just God's voice, the healing voice, the God who does not condemn, you know. He knows my name. And that was very touching for me. And that was the beginning of my recommitment and go full on with God. It hasn't been easy. There's been battles, there's been things like that, but
Yeah.
the Lord has, kept me standing, and things and difficulties have come, and the Lord just has been amazing for me.
That's powerful, man. So as you're coming out of that state of brokenness, and it sounds into a full surrender of your life, what are within those moments, as you're walking out, you're seeing your mother, you're doing all these, this is where I'm heading now. What does that look like? I mean, what are your next decisions, moving forward in your life when you realize who you are, who God wants you to be, and you surrender into that? What happens right after that?
As me trying to, okay, Lord, this is my first step, surrendering. Now, who am I? Or what do you want me to do for you? So the Lord closed many doors when I was looking for jobs and looking. I had studied before all this. I had studied welding, diesel technician, and all these things. And for
Okay.
me, my mentality was like, oh, let's make money, right? Let's just, go on. But the Lord closed doors. And at first, I didn't understand. And then I found out He wanted me to prepare myself. And okay, I was still struggling with the fact that, oh, I'm not going to make money if I go into ministry. Right? That because of my parents were so money oriented, or the whole thing of my family would revolve around money. If you don't have money, if you don't have all these things, then you're nobody, right? So yeah, I did struggle with that. But I finally said, okay, Lord, I will do it. And I will do it by faith. So the first years, obviously my mom paid for a lot of the stuff in the beginning, right? And then from there, I started, looking for a small job, but headed towards, the vision of like preparing myself. And that's another story there in seminary, just the Lord working in my heart. I
So
had
you ended up heading into seminary at that time?
around
How did that decision come
2018.
about? How'd you decide to do that?
I just felt the strong conviction of the Lord, that you need to prepare yourself. I have something for you. And I was like, what
Okay.
is it, Lord? I don't know. How can you use me? I don't have any special talents or things like that, right? Yeah, I thought myself before that, right? And the Lord said, just prepare yourself. And I went in it, and it was a challenge, but I just saw God's hand and grace, especially in the exams and things like that. I don't know how I did it, and a lot of times it's
Mm.
just the Lord, because I'm not the smartest kid.
How did you, as you started that path into seminary and you're talking with your parents, what did they think about that? And then how did you decide on what seminary you would end up going to?
Well, my pastor then, my old pastor, because he used to go to another church before, he studied there. I knew that seminary because of him, and a lot of the people who would visit there or work there were recent graduates from there.
What seminary was it?
Rio Grande Bible Institute.
Okay.
Yeah, just decided to go for it with faith and knowing that I don't know how I'm gonna have enough finances sometimes, but
Mm.
somehow the Lord provided, and I saw His hand there. And at the beginning, when I arrived, I remember seminary, I saw everybody from pastoral families and perfect families, and I would see like I've come from a perfect family, right? So yeah, just the Lord working in my life and saying, you know what, I'm not looking for a perfect person. I'm just looking for you to obey me, right? I'm just looking for obedience.
Mm.
Yeah. So just trust me.
Was your
And
family supportive of that decision?
my mom was really supportive of it
Mm.
because that's what she's been praying for, right?
Yeah.
She's been crying to this moment. And of course, my dad's not Christian. My dad, he's in part of my family. My dad's side is not Christian. So
Mm.
my dad thought that I was crazy and wasting time, right? So I'm not making
Sounds
money
like my
doing
dad.
this. Yeah. Yeah. And his part, it was a complete rejection on that part. And that's another thing, just working through that, the Lord using those situations for me to depend completely on Him, right? Many times, I had to just cry out to God and just give me strength. And also, I had to go through very painful relationships during that time as well, because I guess in my side, I was saying, oh, I'm the single person. I'm never going to get married and things like that, right? Like a lot of the youth think, right? The way they think.
Yeah.
So somehow it happened, but I was trying to look for my happiness or identity in in a relationship or something like that. So God used those relationships to make me realize, you only need me. And yeah, just studying seminary and going through all those things. And then my dad and my mom separated during those times.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. And it was difficult to stay focused. And the enemy tried to, distract me so many times. But the Lord was just there. And you just gotta trust me. You just gotta trust me. And then my younger sister rebelled,
Mm.
and everything is like one after another. And in 1 year, maybe that happened. And her boyfriend back then, her ex-boyfriend would, hit her. He'll
Mm.
come here at home and threaten our family. And it's just a constant battle, right? It's like literally all hell broke loose, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, what's going on? I would ask the Lord, what's going on? And I would just hear his still voice. It's part of your preparation, son. Right. And many times I had to confront the guy, just not with human weapons or none of that, but, just rebuke him,
Yeah.
because this guy He was like very like a demon almost. Like
Mm.
he would, the way he would look at you and my family and threaten my family. And just reading through the stories of David facing the giant and also facing Saul, you know, that made me realize that the Lord places and takes away those people for a reason.
Yeah.
And God uses those people, those things to work in our hearts. And God was working in my heart and is still working in my heart. He hasn't done yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was very difficult, but at the same time it was such a blessing knowing that I'm learning in all these things, right? Just learning to fight on my knees and learning to fight my battles. And I guess everything in when I was in elementary is still a preparation for the things that are to come, right? Facing danger, facing all these things. Yeah. It's
Is your sister, is she in a better place today? Is she doing?
Yeah, she's in a better place. Of course, she's not in a better relationship. She is in a better relationship than her ex-boyfriend
Mm.
before, because this guy doesn't obviously go violent and stuff like that. But she's still not where we as a family or want her to be
Yeah.
at Jesus' feet and surrendering to God. But she's okay. She's safe.
Good.
And she has a little kid, my nephew, which we love a lot. In the beginning, it was, it was challenging as well, but the Lord's been good.
That's good. That's good. When you were in seminary, what were you weren't studying missions, were you?
At the beginning, when I started, I did study missions
Oh, wow.
and I took several mission classes because I was still, like fearful of, I don't want to fail the classes and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So I did take mission classes and then I reinforced my emphasis to pastoral.
Okay.
But my heart was always in missions and I did
Is there a
finish as
particular
pastor.
reason for that?
Not really, I guess, because it's more of I don't know if I could say a more complete program or something like that, but I just felt the Lord's leading that way for some reason. I just went for it. But my heart's always missions. It's always been passionate, very a passion in my heart for that.
So there wasn't like a time growing up where you met missionaries or heard about missionaries or something sparked that?
Yeah, we had several missionaries. We had missionary experience in the beginning. Like the first, I guess I can say, was in Nicaragua, which was in 2012, if I'm not mistaken,
Okay.
with our old church. We went there for a week. I don't know if you can say it a mission, but we had a taste of what it is
Yeah.
to be a missionary. And missionaries would go there as well. Some, especially, I can remember a specific time where some missionaries, Asian missionaries, came and they were doing missions in the Philippines. And that's the first time where I just felt the tug in my heart, right? Oh, I don't know if God can use me, but like I have a deep desire for this. But because I was still back then, I was still struggling with all these things. But that's the first time that something, in my heart, you know. And from there in seminary in 2019, we had one of our directors back then, missions director, Filipino. He invited me to the Philippines. I declined the two times, but the third time he convinced me because I never traveled that far before. And it was just such an experience, not only learning about culture, but just God working in my heart and making me realize the real need in in that country. Here in the US, we're so blessed. We have so many things. We so many opportunities, so many churches and resources, right? But going to a country like that and seeing how people live and worship is just, yeah, just breaking. I can remember a specific time going to a church is just wood around like that, right?
Yeah.
No AC, mosquitoes, and just people going full on, worshiping the Lord.
Yeah.
And that just struck a chord because a lot of times here in the US we complain there's no AC or there's no certain things. And I remember friends of mine would tell me, "Hey, bro, you're here. You're from here. You're from the Philippines." So, nah, I don't think so. You look Filipino. Okay? I was like, no, no, no. I don't think I'm gonna be back. But at that time, the Lord really spoke to me and said, I want to use you here, and instill the dialogue in my mind. It's like, how,
Yeah.
how? So when I came back to the US, I just remember just crying, right? Because I wanted to go back. It just left a deep impression in my heart. And I said, you know what, I'm going back. And until now, I've been, with that desire in my heart to go back and just be God's instrument.
So you come back from the Philippines and you feel that, hey, this might be the area where God's leading me to eventually go long term serve. What is that? What was that process like as you're talking with family, friends? Because at that point, you don't know who you're joining, how you're getting there, all that kind of stuff. So that's got to be, yeah, quite a journey.
Yeah, it was quite a journey because I knew that the Lord was calling me to that place for some reason, but I didn't know how. So that was the process. And I remember talking to friends, and I always find myself talking about the Philippines, and they would tell me like, "Hey, bro, you're always talking about the Philippines," and I just subconsciously I would just bring it up out of nowhere, and until now it just comes out in conversations and my church friends as well. They would tell me, "Hey, bro, you should. I mean, you should try it. You should go for it. That's the desires God placed in your heart." And even in seminary, my professors, they would really encourage me for it, and they would tell me, we see something very special in you, son, and God wants to use you. And then I remember the last years of seminary, or the last semesters, maybe 2 semesters before graduating, maybe like that. I was praying to the Lord, I'm going to graduate already. How am I going to go back to the Philippines? With who? Or how are you going to use me? And I don't know. I was playing around with my wallet and just, looking inside my wallet and things like that. And one OMF card popped out.
Oh,
And
how'd you get that?
got it. And then that was my dilemma. I was like, when did I get this one? I don't remember. And I couldn't remember how I got it. And until now, I'm still thinking about how did I get that one. I just don't remember. I might have gotten it subconsciously. I don't know. But it was there. I was like, okay, I guess this is his response. And I decided to contact OMF, and that's how the whole process started. Yeah.
Holy smokes. And you
Mm,
still don't know.
yeah, and it's still just thinking about, oh, maybe I got it subconsciously. I don't know. I don't remember.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even have known what OMF was then.
Oh, and before that, and what makes it more interesting is that I was doing a research of Hudson Taylor before I graduated. Before all this, back then it was called China Inland Mission,
Yeah.
CIM. But I didn't know that the name was OMF now, right?
Yeah.
So I had done a research before all this, and then I started making connections. I was like, wait a minute. I just did a research on Hudson Taylor, and it really impacted my life, his early life, his early years. Very similar to my life story. His mother prayed for
Yep.
him to
He was
to be a
rebellious. Yep.
missionary to China, right? And he was rebellious for a long time until he picked up a little
The trap.
tract
Yep.
and just hit his heart. And he says, "Mom, I'm going to China as a missionary." "I know, son."
Yeah.
And that's how it started.
Very similar to your story because she was praying for him at the time that happened, like your mom.
She already knew.
That's cool.
Yeah, she already knew. And yeah, it's just a confirmation from the Lord, I guess, and just
Mm.
very interesting. And it just makes you feel, very small before the Lord. Just
Yeah.
how the Lord, it's just humbling experience. How the Lord just decides to use vessels like us, right?
Yeah. That's incredible. So you pull that card out, it talks about OMF, and then you put the pieces together with James Hudson Taylor, and you're studying those kinds of things in the China in the mission. And so you reach out to us. That process, if people are curious, what was that like as you contact OMF to begin praying through and discerning through if this is really where God's leading you?
No, I just felt a peace right away, right? Just looking through the OMF page and things like that. And I just felt my heart jump for some reason. And when I contacted them, they're very, very nice. And I told them my story, and they could see, God's hand, I guess, in my life. Yeah, at the beginning, it was also challenging because I was like, oh, might be a long process, or like I don't know if I can make it that far, things like that, right? Or how am I going to do it? And just thoughts of I don't have money, right? But the Lord just keeps opening doors and just helping me. Especially, I remember one specific verse. Let's see if I find it here. As I was just, crying out to the Lord and asking, Lord, how am I going to do all these things? Let's see if I find it here.
Mm-hmm.
It's Isaiah 46:10 to 11. It says, my word will remain, and I will do everything I wish. And I called the bird from the east, and from a faraway land, my chosen one. I spoke, and I would do it, and I thought it, and I would also make it come true. I'm translating. I have a Spanish Bible,
Mm-hmm.
but I remember just reading through that and saying, "Okay, the Lord is really serious about this." And then I grew up, and the most interesting part about this whole process as well was, now that it comes to mind, I grew up very traditional Baptist, right? I didn't believe necessarily in dreams, right? But it was very interesting that we cannot put God in a box, right?
Yeah.
And that's the interesting part. I remember in this whole process just praying, Lord, do you really think I should go here? And I remember one time just waking up with a phrase in my head, I will use you, but I will also reveal your heart first. That phrase in my head.
Mm.
So this whole process has been that, is seeing my own sinfulness as well, and just depending and grabbing myself very strongly to the Lord. He's been revealing areas of my life that I didn't know before,
Yeah.
and just seeing his grace through all that. And then my other question was, how am I gonna have enough money for
Yeah.
this? And the Lord gave me another, and I was crying to the Lord, and one of my tears fell in one verse, and I didn't realize then, but I looked down, and it was the same. It was in the same book, but it says, "The work of Egypt and the business of Ethiopia and the Sabaeans, men of high stature, will go to you, and it will be yours, and they will go before you, and they would carry, and they will give you reverence, and they would ask you, saying, certainly God is with you, and there is nobody like God. Truly, truly you are God who covers yourself, and the God of Israel who saves." That's Isaiah 45:14. Basically talking
Mm-hmm.
about, here necessarily he's talking about Cyrus, right? How God was going to use Cyrus to save his people, and he was going to give Cyrus the authority and to save the people of Israel. But for me, this personal verse is talking about how the Lord will open doors or provide in a way that I didn't necessarily understand, and he would use people that I didn't expect, right?
Yeah.
So for me, that was like, okay, wait a minute. The Lord speaks the way he wants to speak, right? He doesn't,
Mm.
and you can't put him in a box. And I keep repeating this. And then another verse I remember was Exodus 33:3. I will go forth and give you rest. That verse kept appearing for
Mm.
the past months, right? And everywhere, Facebook and all this stuff, it just kept appearing there, that number. And I was like, okay. So, yeah. And I knew that the Lord was telling me, go forward. I'm going before you. Trust me. And it's just been like
Yeah,
that.
that's
Many
cool.
things doesn't make sense, but it's been like that.
I
You know?
think that's how God often works in ways that we
Mhm.
go, this doesn't seem to make sense, but only to Him.
Yep. And I guess
So,
that's how the journey's been.
yeah, and it will continue to be that way. Trust me. But that's the excitement of it. I love your phrase, you keep repeating is that you can't put God in a box. And I think the people that try to, they miss out on so much.
Yeah, exactly.
So as you went through the process with OMF, you became appointed, you're in the partnership development phase, getting ready to, move forward to launch at some point. What was that process like as you're talking to your church family, your family, and telling them this is where things are heading?
Yeah, my church was very supportive. I'm now the Filipino church. It's been like 3 years I've been there. I decided to serve there and stay there because my heart was with the Filipinos, right? And they've been very supportive. They're always asking me, hey, when are you going? If you go, our house is there. We can invite you there. And they've been very supportive, especially my pastor. My family and my mom's been supportive. Of course, like every mom, she's, once in a while,
Yeah.
it's like, I don't know, you should do this or, right? But she knows that the Lord has this in my heart and she's supporting it. And of course, on my other side of the family, they think I'm crazy. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And once in a while, I have to deal with the comments and, what are you doing with your life? Well, I'm becoming a missionary. Oh, yeah.
Getting ready to go overseas.
Yeah. How are you going to do it? Oh, did by faith.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And they change topics, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's not go down that road.
Yeah, that's
So as you've gone through it, do you have a certain date where you're hoping to actually head out?
God willing, July this year. I was gonna say
July of
2026, already
2026.
2026, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, July this year, God willing. I'm still in the process of working with the materials and things like that.
Yeah.
And my finals with the medical stuff as well.
Okay. You said your finals. What's that?
Almost finishing up the medical clearance. Yeah,
Oh,
because
the
I got
medical.
the
Okay.
I
With
got the
OMF.
other clearances first
Yeah.
for some reason.
Okay.
And one of the last ones was medical and financial. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
those are the ones
There's
that.
a process. There's a process to
Mhm.
it
Yeah.
with paperwork and medical checks and all
Mhm.
kinds of little things. Some people kind of look at it as, yeah, this is a lot. This is crazy. But the purpose of it is to make sure as you discern through this that you're ready for this. You've thought about this, you're healthy. Yeah. Because we want to make sure that, this is a huge decision. I mean, you've already been through culture shock. This is going to be another culture shock when you
Yep.
go and you live there. And the best, we do all these things so that we hope that it gives you the best, possible shot at lasting, sustaining yourself. It's the right thing for you where God wants you.
And I still get some comments sometimes. Oh, how long you're staying? Oh, I'm staying 4 years.
Mm.
Are you sure about that? Why don't you just get a job here or something like that? But I know that this is the direction the Lord wants me to go. And yeah, it's been a journey. It's been a journey of detachment, entrusting my family to the Lord, entrusting my life to the Lord. I had to make a prayer before the Lord and asking, Lord, my mom is yours, my sister is yours, and my life is in your altar. Do whatever you want. And if it takes for me to lose my life for that, it might be a dangerous prayer for me to say, as people say, but I'm here and my life is at your altar. I don't want to live my life knowing that I'm far away from God's will. He saved me from the disaster that I was before. Why shouldn't I, give my whole life for this, right? Why should I waste my life in something that is not God's leading or will? You know, yeah, for some people it's crazy that I'm leaving a lot of stuff behind. And for me at the beginning, it was crazy too. But now it's just, Lord, I'm here and this is your will and your will be done. You know, I might not have houses, I might not have all these big things that people look for, but you are my inheritance. I am before you. I'm consecrated, I'm separated for this. And here I am.
I love it, man. That's powerful. This is why I love doing testimonies. I think there's just so much power in hearing how God's been at work in people's lives, from the very moment they're brought into the world to the point of where they are today. And this is your story, and this is how God's been working throughout your story. As you kind of look back at, over the years of all you've been through, all you've experienced, and seen the hand of God at work in so many different ways, coming to a close of our time together, is there anything that you would like to pass on to those of our, to our listeners, any words of wisdom or things that you've processed through that you're grateful for, or blessings, or yeah, just to share just the last few moments with our listeners and just how you'd like to close out your story?
I guess I can say, believe the Lord. It might not make sense, at the beginning, and your pain has a significance and has a purpose. Your pain is not wasted. And a mighty God has a purpose. Like myself in the beginning, I didn't understand most of the stuff. And there's still a lot of stuff that I don't understand because God is a eternal God, right? Can't understand anything, everything. But that your pain has a purpose and God wants to use it so you can be his vessel to heal those who are hurting, right? And the story that God is making from your life is unique. It's not like you cannot compare exactly to another story. And this is God's story for your life. It's not your story, it's God's story about you, about his greatness. And God is creating a story about his greatness, his goodness, his mercy, and what he can do with a sinner like us.
Well, amen to that. And thank you so much for the blessing and the privilege it is to be able to, get together and hear your story and allowing us to be able to be a part of that. So thank you so much for joining the show. Blessings on all
Thank you.
things ahead, and looking forward to having you come back one day and sharing all the new things that you've learned of God and how he works through the pain as well as through the good things that come in life.
Yep. And it's just a building up, a story that's building up, right? Until we're with the Lord. New pages of a book. That's the way I see it.
Yeah.
David said, we have a book written of me, right? From beginning to end. He is there, the author and finisher of our faith.
Amen to that, brother.
Mhm.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me here. And it's such a blessing to share.
To learn more about OMF, visit us at omf.org/US.